I need like a famous Shakespeare opening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AP Lit review today. We're excited that you're here with us. It's Thursday. Is that right? I kind of lose track of days, but I think it's Thursday. We're counting on down to the exam, 15 school days. I'm still taking links out. I'm Susan Barber from Atlanta, Georgia. It's raining here today. I've even had my power flicker on and off a little this morning. Here's Bear. He's hanging close today since it is stormy. Today, it's a big day in the literary world. It is Shakespeare's birthday. I'm wearing my Shakespeare shirt from the Folger Shakespeare Library. Love those people and what they're doing to get Shakespeare in the hands of students. So today, thinking about like what Shakespeare plays we like, maybe what Shakespeare plays we don't like. I don't know if this is a safe place to share plays we don't like. I'll start though. I'm not a huge fan of Romeo and Juliet, just putting that out there. I know I've like some people will
Uh-oh.
never listen to
Uh-oh.
another word I say. Here's what I love though. I love The Tempest. Love that. Love Othello. Love Hamlet. Really, the tragedies in general. I just always like the tragedies, and that's probably a weird thing that I'm drawn to those kind of plays. What's your favorite Shakespeare work, Mr. Escobar?
Man, how long is this YouTube session? Um, without a doubt, Hamlet.
Yeah.
And it's gotten to the point where I don't even like to teach Hamlet anymore. I just want it for myself. I want to read it.
You're
I want
being
to think about
stingy
it.
with Hamlet.
It's not it. You know how as teachers we go through the, oh, that's great. We've never heard that. I don't know. Hamlet is definitely my favorite. And here we have Mr. Shakespeare himself today
Looking over
making an
us.
appearance, looking over us.
I have
And
Bear, you have Shakespeare.
and there you go. There you
We're
go.
ready. We're ready to
And
go.
with Romeo and Juliet, actually,
Oh,
oh
I
man,
shouldn't have said that.
I'm gonna say something that will cause me some physical harm too. So don't worry about it, Miss Barber. I'm actually a big fan of the play.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a big fan of the play being taught in the ninth grade.
Interesting.
I think it's too difficult. I think that Shakespeare is showing off in so many of those passages in that play just what he could do with language,
Mm,
that I think, even though, I've heard a lot of teachers argue with me and they're like, but it's so appropriate for the age. And yeah, but
mhm.
but but there's more to that play than just two young kids who are
Right,
in love.
right.
Um, the language is so difficult, so difficult. I love it. I don't agree with everything Harold Bloom said when he was alive, but at one point he said that Romeo and Juliet taught us how to love,
Mm.
and I agree. To be a glove and have that glove touch her face, and that is enough. That's just remarkable.
Well,
So I
and
love Romeo and Juliet.
maybe that's it for me because it's hard to separate like what we like as a reader ourselves and then through the teacher's eyes because everything we read, as much as we try to separate it, it goes through this teacher lens and
Filter,
maybe just
absolutely.
seeing how Romeo and Juliet is handled in the schools. So I'll give it
Yeah,
another chance.
maybe that's it. I don't know, but happy birthday, Shakespeare. He's
Yes.
definitely in our minds, many of our minds today. And let's get started. All
Hey,
right, but how about
I got a couple of shout outs. Can I give a couple of shout outs? And
absolutely? Let's go.
we are way behind on emails because both of us had essays come in this week. And so we're going to catch up on our emails this weekend and give some more shout outs. But I did want to say hi to Miss Stuckey's class today, who's been watching Brookfield High School in Virginia. Hey, y'all. I know you'll understand my Southern accent where you are, and also Miss Soper's class. Miss Soper is a friend of mine, as is Miss Stuckey. So these classes, y'all have rock star teachers. So shout out to Miss Soper's class in Michigan. Let's get into our lesson today.
Well, let's. But you know what? I actually have a bone to pick
Ha
because you're. I'll let you play. Mr. Nice Guy or Miss Nice Guy here. But I'm upset. My wife told me that the International Space Station was I think sent a Zoom message or something to some graduates out there, some seniors, and I'm here happy that we got emails from China and Germany and Saudi Arabia, and so people in space are contacting students.
We've
What?
got to
Why
up
not
our
the AP
game.
Lit group? Come on, Mr. and Mrs. Science astronauts up there. Let's zoom and let's talk literature. How does Shakespeare look from up where you are today? So I hope to hear from NASA and the International Space Station. I'm not sure that's going to
How are you
happen,
going to
but
put that on your map?
oh Lord, that okay. That's another day's conversation. So yesterday we asked you to think about how you would organize this essay, and that's so critical. It's so important for students out there to start thinking. We look at the links behind Miss Barber. This exam is coming very, very soon. You have to start thinking about what your approach is going to be as you write this essay. And yesterday we spoke about organizing your essay through insights, through the chronological sort of order of the passage, and through device organization. And we wanted you to select one of these methods and start outlining your your essay. There is no right answer. Miss Barber and I were very forthright in telling you that our preference is one that combines insight and the order of passage, and that we tend to tell our students to stay away from the device organization. But at this stage we're gonna write the best essay with what we got, right?
Hmm.
And hopefully these are just some thoughts that'll provoke you to grow and eke out the best essay on the day of the exam. So hopefully you did organize this, because at this point you've written a thesis statement, you've thought about the organizational style, and today you're not going to write an essay, but you are going to start writing a body paragraph based on what we're going to be talking about today, because we're really looking at the the claims and the evidence and the way we present that, specifically the way we present embedded quotations. And we're also going to talk about some of the elements of composition that are problematic sometimes in students' essays, and that we still have plenty of time left
Hmm.
to focus on those and try to make amends with the grammar gods, and try to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, I really think the way that students use evidence and specifically embed quotes, it's one of the easiest ways to elevate writing to another level. So let's look at that. But before we talk about quotations, let's think about just how do we choose evidence in general. Um, so when we think about, collecting our thoughts and organizing our thoughts, we're looking at, well, what stands out to us. And then after we think about, have insights and original ideas about what stands out to us, and we start to frame out our essay, we then move to thinking about evidence. And so not only do I need to have original ideas, but I have to support my ideas, my claims with evidence from the text. So, two questions you should be asking yourself: is the evidence that I'm choosing relevant to the insight that I have in this passage? And is there enough evidence? Is it sufficient to support it? And I really tell my students you need at least two pieces of evidence to support a claim that you have or an insight that you have. You don't want your whole paper to be just evidence. You have to have analysis, but the more evidence you can bring in to support, that's going to open you up for more analysis. Students always ask, how long should my paper be? How long should my body paragraph be? And there's not one answer for that, but I always tell my students, when you're writing, especially for the AP exam, this is not a less is more time. This is a more is more time. The more you can write, the more you can generate, then usually the greater chance that you're going to be
Be
answering the
rewarded.
prompt.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you can, we've seen a lot of essays over our careers that they are long and they don't say a lot, but that's why we're going through thinking about what evidence do I need to choose? Now, what do I need to say about that evidence? So if you're thinking about what do I notice? How is the author communicating this? Why is it important? If you're doing more of those things, you're going to have a great essay. So let's look at this next example when we're thinking about relevant evidence and sufficient evidence. And this is the topic sentence up here is the one working off of my student sample from yesterday. This is her topic sentence. As the narrator speaks with and observes Zenobia, she struggles with the belief that Zenobia is falsely representing herself. So that's her insight. That's the idea. So now this, I think, is in the second chunk of the text that she was working with. And I went through and highlighted some things that would support this. Well, she should make room. I saw how fit it was. She should make room for herself, as gorgeous as she please. Like maybe, oh, she is falsely representing herself. I hardly knew whether I beheld Zenobia in her truest attribute. There was something like an illusion. And then we have this back and forth conversation between the two. And all of these are pieces of evidence that can be used to support this topic sentence. So you want to have your topic sentence, have your insight, and then go through the chunk of text you're working with and either jot down some notes or highlight some ideas that will support it. And you want to think, is this evidence relevant? Does it directly relate back? Does it prove my topic sentence? And is it enough? And when you look at this highlighted, like this is enough. And so then you need to move to the step of how am I going to incorporate this evidence? So let's talk about quotations and how to use quotations. The basic rule, never let a quote stand alone as its own sentence. You always need to set up a quote in some kind of way. So you can see this example here. When the narrator feels like she has Zenobia figured out, Zenobia becomes an illusion. And then you just have this quote dropped in. But the next instant, she was too powerful for my opposing struggles. I think like people refer to this as a dropped quote. How do you refer to these in your classroom, Mr. Escobar?
I'm so allergic to these that I don't refer to them as anything. But
In Georgia, and this sounds weird now that I say it, but we call these naked quotes, like they're just
huh.
standing alone out
Yeah,
there
I'm not
naked.
sure what we call them. But that's interesting. What's the other term I learned from you? The chicken foot
Oh yeah, the chicken
thesis,
foot.
right? Yeah.
You're learning
There
all
you
the
go.
Georgia terms. Yeah, but so this quote is standing alone, and that's something that you want to avoid, just sticking a piece of evidence in. We need to introduce the quote or embed the quote. So let's look at a couple of ways that you can do this. Now, this first one, you can have an introductory phrase or context and plus the quotation. And this is probably the very first way that even in elementary school, you learned how to introduce quotes.
The
The
attribution, right?
Exactly. The author writes, comma. Well, we got to speak about commas too at
Yeah.
some point. The author writes, comma. She has shown me the true flesh and blood of her heart. And then maybe a little later, you learn that you could set up a quote with a colon. The narrator is perplexed when thinking about Zenobia, colon, quote, her manner bewildered me. Now, both of these are acceptable, but we do want to elevate our writing, and we want to set our writing up where you are taking your quotes and your evidence from the text and you're embedding them, you're weaving them in and out of your analysis and your insights. So, this is the preferred way to do this, to take an assertion of your own ideas and then have the quoted material worked in throughout. Zenobia wondered why she should be complacent with that life when, quote, it was good, but there are other lives as good or better. This next one I love. The narrator thinks it to be, quote, excessively rich, just pulling in a couple of words, and the, quote, fulfillment of every fantasy of an imagination. And then I highlighted this next part blue because now we're going straight into the analysis of that, straight in the why. Why is this important? And so this is what we really like about quotes that are embedded. It allows you to just seamlessly move from evidence to analysis. And we want to be sure that you are setting yourself up to not only give the evidence, but to explain why it's important. The other
If
thing, go
if
ahead.
students ever receive a score from their teacher and they don't understand why they earned that score, and I think we have talked about this before, but one of the things I've had my students do in the past is go ahead and highlight all of your evidence, and then go ahead and highlight every clause or every sentence that only provides summary.
Mhm.
Go ahead, highlight that, and then see what you have left, right? And what you have left should be analysis. And granted, it's not always the case, right? Sometimes students come up with other uh, other tangents, but if the bulk of your essay is plot and quotations,
Mhm.
how do you expect to earn points? How do you expect to be? You're not taking a claim, you're not defending it, you're not interpreting anything. And so this is crucial when you're taking, I think of an essay as real estate, as landscape. And if we're not writing very long essays, if we're writing, let's say, front and back, right? We're writing 2 pages, 1 page front and back, and you have a bunch of quotations, you have some plot summary, you repeat yourself here and there. Let's say your conclusion really isn't offering anything insightful, and let's say your introduction, for the most part, repeats the prompt, but you're not really like claiming anything. What do you have left? You don't have room to write entire sentences, quote 1 or 2 sentences. It has to be what we see here in these examples, mainly that middle example. That is
Yeah,
so
it's great.
rich because you have the setup, the quotation, and then that blue. And that's gold right there. That's what's gonna push you in that second row towards the 3 and 4 points instead of the 1 and 2 points.
Yeah, and a lot of times at the reading, we will see it is not uncommon to see essays where you have a topic sentence and then you'll have just a 2 sentence maybe quote from the text dropped in, your naked quote is just dropped on in there, and then maybe 1 sentence following that. Maybe it summarizes, maybe it is analysis, but 1 sentence is not enough to deal with 2 whole sentences
Yeah.
from the text. And that's why we really like breaking this down into smaller chunks. And one of my rules is, I really don't want you using a quote that is more than 9 words, and really preferably smaller than that, because when you're quoting 1 sentence or a couple of sentences, um, there's a lot of analysis that can occur in that. So when students break it down into 3 words, 5 words, 7 words, and insert their analysis throughout, it really lets you go deeper into analysis because you're dealing phrase by phrase or clause by
Right,
clause
you're delving into
as
the
opposed to
language at that
sentence
point,
by
right? Yeah,
sentence.
absolutely.
Exactly. So I
Absolutely.
think that really helps you go deeper into your analysis. So what you want is small quotes sprinkled throughout your paper. Small quotes sprinkled throughout your paper. Lots of them.
I hear a lot
Um,
of sprinkles there.
yes, lots of sprinkles, because this is how we do it in my class. When we do this, we have ice cream, and we all have ice cream, and we talk about if you're going to an ice cream shop and you're getting an ice cream cone with sprinkles on it, if you are sprinkling, I mean, you want your sprinkles not just like in one big clump on your ice cream cone. You want them evenly distributed because you want a few sprinkles in every bite. You just don't want this one clump. So we're all about the food imagery, aren't we? The brownie, the ice cream, and the sprinkles. But when you think about your quotes, think about several small quotes sprinkled throughout your ice cream. You may need to go get some ice cream and sprinkles to really hit this home today. So, just some reminders. Small quotes, 9 words or less. I think, yep, 9 words or less. This allows you to be very specific and go much deeper in your analysis because you're, like Mr. Escobar said, now you're looking at the language, you're breaking down phrases and clauses in these small segments. Quotes are sprinkled throughout the paragraph. This allows for a really seamless integration of your ideas and your evidence. And always we want your analysis to outweigh your quotes. So we do want lots and lots of evidence, but you have to tell us why you're using that evidence, why that evidence is important, how that evidence relates back to your topic sentence, and that relates back to the thesis. Everything is proving your argument, and your analysis is really where you're doing the heavy lifting of the explanation. That's a lot, right?
That is a lot.
This lesson, a lot of the bones of this lesson came from Melissa Smith. You probably, and I want to give her credit for this. I've been using this lesson for a couple of years, and she's not making any money off this website, so I don't feel bad giving her props, and she should. It's a great resource for teachers, teachlivingpoets.com, and even for students. If you like poets and modern poetry, you can go to this website and click on these poets, and it'll give you some of their videos. It'll link you to poets. Just a great resource for getting poetry into teachers' hands and into students' hands. So thanks, Melissa, for letting me share your lesson today. So when we're checking for understanding, let's go back and look at the paragraph that I gave you up front, the topic sentence, and then we looked at the chunk, and let's look at what this looks like with the evidence woven throughout. As the narrator speaks with and observes Zenobia, she struggles with the belief that Zenobia is falsely representing herself, calling her an, quote, illusion, believing Zenobia wants her to feel ashamed and small, fighting, quote, against the effect which Zenobia sought to impose upon her. Again, those quotes just woven throughout this student's ideas. The narrator also thinks, however, that Zenobia had the right to, quote, make herself as gorgeous as she pleased. And this next part I also highlighted because while the writer is not directly quoting, it is very specific Textual evidence. I think the rubric refers to it as specific and apt textual evidence. The narrator wars with which thoughts ring true, settles upon asking Zenobia where the last traces of the familiar, more humble woman she had known and gone, wishing. And now we're getting to this is what the narrator's looking for. This is why the narrator is turmoiled and having this internal battle. So you can also specifically refer to evidence without quoting it, but we do want you to use quotes. So that's what a paragraph would look like with embedded quotes.
And we want to remind you that today we're looking at a very specific um, item within the elements of composition skill set for this course. There's so many things that we could discuss. We chose to focus on quotations because every essay needs to have evidence, and the evidence can get you into trouble. There's a lot of pitfalls. You might have complete sentences where you have more quotation than your own analysis, and that's not ideal. But then the other thing that could happen is you might set up the quotation in a way that's grammatically incorrect. Ms. Barber had talked to you about remember the comma, right? Make sure that you understand where you have to capitalize, where you don't capitalize. And usually you're going to capitalize when you have the attribution, but when you're embedding, it'll normally just follow organically the grammatical structure of your own sentence. However, you have sat with your teachers now for most of the year. We tend to think that this is it, this is our reality, and this is all that's going to prepare us for the exam, but that's not true at all.
Mm-hmm.
My students and your students and you guys out there, you've written so many essays before
Mm-hmm.
the quarantine happened, before we became best friends. um, and you have to think back to all of the advice that your teacher has given you. And anytime that they marked on the paper something like, we started talking about some of these last night, Miss Barber, but plurals versus possessives or misplaced modifiers, subject verb agreement, run on sentences, fragments, whatever your teacher has told you that you really should focus on, now is the time for you to turn
Mm-hmm.
to the internet. It's not just about what was it, Tiger King,
Yeah.
um, and take a break from from Netflix and look up, go on Khan Academy. Figure out what it is that you
Mm-hmm.
need to work on when it comes to elements of composition and get it fixed. Sometimes it's just a very simple grammatical rule that for some reason you have forgotten, or it never stuck really. Now is the time, because it is going to affect how you present yourself, how your essay is conveyed, and you want to get credit for absolutely everything that you're presenting on that essay. And you don't want your reader to be stuck or your reader to have
Mm-hmm.
to reread because it's it's ambiguous or awkward.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead right now and focus on what your teachers have told you and impact your writing. But let's definitely start with, how do we embed quotations? How do we make them fluid? How do we make them organic? And how do we make sure that we have the right balance between what the passage was, if you include too many quotes, it's not your writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're quoting Hawthorne, then that's Hawthorne's essay, essentially. We want to see your essay. And that's why striking the balance is important.
And
But
tomorrow we are going to be talking about analysis and what makes for good analysis. So that will end out our week on writing. I think we're going to be talking about writing next week
yeah,
as
we're talking
well.
about writing next week as well. And you're still not writing the essay. Like we said, we're going to take this same prompt,
It's
and we
Shakespeare's
promise.
birthday. We're not writing essays
That's right.
today.
We're making brownies and what
Exactly.
else?
Ice cream with
Ice cream with
sprinkles.
sprinkles. But we want you to take this this prompt, and you have the passage here. And what we want you to do is develop the best body paragraph that you could develop. We want that body paragraph to have a strong topic sentence
Hmm.
that comes directly from your thesis statement. We want you to have a good balance of evidence and commentary. We want you to try to practice embedding your quotations and not letting
Hmm.
those quotes stand alone. We want you to take the time not just to revise, but revise and edit. At which point you're going to be focusing on the grammatical aspects of your of your essay. Something that a teacher taught me when I was a student was read it out loud.
Yeah.
If when you excuse me, if when you read your essay out loud, you're tripping over your own
Hmm.
sentences, there might be something off at that moment. So highlight it and then go back and see why did I trip here? What's going on grammatically?
And I coach my students to do that as well, to read their essay aloud. I think you can catch about like 90% of just errors or things that aren't as fluid as they should be. And I know there are a lot of disadvantages with the way that this AP test is shaking down this year. But one advantage is you can read your essay out loud. And that's something that you can't do if you're sitting in a room with 100 other students taking it. So take advantage of that this
Yeah,
year.
that's a great point. Yeah, they can definitely do that this year. And we've reached the end of this slide pretty much.
Yep.
We have to reach out today, guys. We have to reach out and help our classmates, help our students. If you know that a kid is having issues with either device or internet access, please go to the URL today, fill in the information, because this is it. It's gotten to the point where if we don't reach out today, then the
Hmm.
College Board won't be able to reach out to them in time to be able to do anything about it. Something else I want to mention to the students: make sure that if the College Board has sent you an email, go ahead and respond to that email confirming your exam date and time. If you have not received that email, don't worry about it. All of you should be logging into your AP Classroom, though.
Right.
Make sure you have access. Look at your profile. Make sure that you have, as part of your profile, the correct email address, and that email address is the one that you check most often. All right, because right now, you need that communication with the College Board. April 28th, if I'm not mistaken, Ms.
That's
Barber, is a
correct.
very big day, because that's the day that more information will come out. So that's in 5 days, regarding the exam, the platform,
The
all sorts
platform.
of
Yep.
issues. And something else, guys, remember, we focus on skills. We don't focus on how to beat the system. Students have already gotten in trouble because they have been found to be communicating about how to cheat and how to, beat the game and beat the system. None of that. Okay, none of
Yep.
that. You trust your skill, you
Yep.
trust the work you've put in, and you're going to do a great job. None of that
Absolutely.
nonsense.
Absolutely. So, class of 2020, we love you. We're pulling for you guys. We're rooting for you. See you tomorrow. TGIF tomorrow.